Welcome to the Cop Shop with FPD. I'm Shanice Gonzales, the Public Information Officer, and with me, as always, is Chief Hebbe. How are you?
Good. Good to see you again, Shanice.
Yes, sir.
Excellent intro.
You had just done an impression of me that I would love for you to do with the audience. I'd love to get that on camera.
Hello, my name's Shanice Gonzales.
Not that one.
So, today we have a special guest, and it is Lieutenant Shaun Goodsell. And Shaun is with our homicide/detective unit and also in charge of our real-time crime center. So quite a handful for him. And you've been over that for coming up on 2 years?
Yeah, just hitting 2 years.
Just hitting 2 years. And you've been with the department how long?
16 years.
16. And you're still loving it?
Love it.
Good.
Nowhere else I'd rather be.
Good. There's the answer. Sometimes the shows are short. I just want to get them on tape saying stuff so we can use it later against them. But in this case, Shaun definitely has had a bunch of high-profile cases and winds up working very closely with the staff and with the public to try and solve some of the pretty serious cases that we've had. He also, in addition to the Real-Time Crime Center and our homicide cases, he's in charge of our investigations into missing and murdered Indigenous women, Indigenous people in general. And so we're going to kind of chat about all of those topics today. And Shanice has a couple of questions, and we'll take the conversation from there.
Lieutenant, what are some common misconceptions the public has about how quickly and easily these cases are solved?
Yeah, I think we live in the age of the TV and movies where, you know, the crime can happen and in 30 minutes by the time the show's over, you know, all the DNA is in, all the technology's been filtered through, and we have a open and shut case within that time frame. When technology is great, and we're seeing some huge advances in technology, but technology still takes time. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing we see is that there's a misconception on how quickly we can utilize the technology and the capabilities of the technology themselves. You know, it's not one of those, I have a machine on scene and I can plug in some DNA and then it tells me right then and there who that is and where they live and where they work and that kind of stuff. So.
Sure. And that does create pressure. I mean, it's already an emotional time for victims' families, or, you know, either they're missing, so maybe they're not even a crime victim, but there's already a lot of emotion on the family, and then they've watched a lot of television, they've watched a lot of movies, and things get solved quickly. Here's some blood on the window. We should be able to draw that, submit it to the lab, and find out tomorrow morning. Most of the evidence gets submitted to the state crime lab, but because of some of the backlog there, the state lab works all the cases in New Mexico. We've actually done extra things like send out to private labs, contract with private labs out of our budget to try and get the material back faster. And this year we even purchased a rapid DNA machine. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and what our hopes are for that?
Yeah, I think the DNA machine, we purchased it. It came in about March, so it's been up and running for about a month. But I think it's going to be an absolute game changer. We send stuff to the labs, so DNA, our items, that kind of stuff that we want to get tested. And not a knock on the state labs, but like because of the backlog that you had mentioned, I mean, it's months to years before we can really get a good solid answer. And then like you mentioned, we've gone to the private labs. Even there, we're months out, 6 months, 8 months out from getting any kind of result. The capabilities of this machine, especially when it comes to comparison DNA, so if we do have blood on a scene and then we have some standard, whether it's a suspect or something like that, we're able to utilize this machine in-house and get results within 90 minutes. So we're going from years to months to now 90 minutes of a result to see if, hey, yeah, we're headed in the right direction, or no, you know, this isn't what we thought it was going to be. We need to redirect our efforts, which is going to speed up, I think, exponentially the ability of the detective division to solve some cases.
So last year, in the summer, the governor had a special session, and one of the things that the Attorney General, Raul Torres, had forwarded was working with the Chiefs Association, was buying up to 10 rapid DNA machines and spreading them around the state for just this reason. And so we had kind of waited. We had been thinking about doing it, but it's expensive. It's $250,000 plus $28,000 a year in a continuing support contract. That means if we got something, they would send out a scientist to testify on it, and they would support us with anything else we need during the course of that year. So it is not a small investment for an agency our size, but we're able to absorb it. Many of the smaller agencies around the state could not absorb it. So the Attorney General had forwarded that as something that the legislature actually could do and invest in. And it was discussed last summer. It kind of goes to some of my frustration with the special session, followed by the 60-day session we just went through, where it did not get passed. There was no funding for those things. And in the wake of that, when I could see that we weren't going to get any funding out of the session this year, we just made the decision to purchase it ourselves out of our budget. And so we kind of scrambled around, moved some things around, because we do see the kind of game-changing potential of at least a much more rapid turnaround of some of this information, which means we're not sitting on well, it could be this suspect, it could be this suspect, it could be this suspect. We can kind of narrow it down. Even if we can't get to a complete identification, we can kind of rule folks out, which allows our detectives to not be stuck spinning their wheels on something that ultimately doesn't prove to be accurate or valuable. So, you know, I think we're still learning it. We actually, it was so new for us that in a recent homicide, we reached out to Albuquerque Police Department and used their rapid DNA machine. Ours wasn't fully up, and we're still trying to figure out how it works. But Albuquerque's had it for a couple of years, and they were able to turn that information around pretty quickly for us, and then pointed us towards a suspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was going to exactly what you were talking about. We had an idea. We think it's probably person A or person B, but we had nothing to be able to differentiate, and it wasn't until we got the results from that DNA to say, okay, it looks like it is person B. Which again isn't the end all be all, but it gives us kind of a direction to continue the investigation.
Yeah, it's one of the tools, and
Right.
you know, you still have to. You still do all the old school copying, take the interviews. These days, now it's even tracking cell phones, things like that. On top of it, you know, with Shaun's additional duty over the Real-Time Crime Center, we also work in conjunction with the Real-Time Crime Center. That's the license plate readers. That's the cameras that we have all over, and in conjunction then with the DNA machine. Those were two pretty big, powerful parts of one of our most recent homicide arrests.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'd probably still be looking for the person had we not had both of those working in conjunction.
Okay.
Awesome. How has the department used social media or public tips to help solve homicides or locate missing persons?
Yeah, I think social media, it just, you know, whether good or bad, it increases the ability to communicate. So on the good side of things, Shanice, we can give information out to her to push out to the public, and usually we receive numerous tips, and it gives you know, just a little breadcrumb for our detectives to follow up on to see, you know, if this is credible. You know, and there's been some times, especially on the missing persons, where we posted stuff saying, hey, this person's missing, and the person says, no, I'm not missing, right? Which helps solve that case as well. So it's been huge just to give us, you know, a starting platform on, hey, I think I saw that person over at this store. Okay, well, let's go to the store. Let's see if there's any surveillance video there. Is there anything we can use to corroborate, yeah, this is our missing person? So it's been extremely beneficial, the tips from the community.
And with that, with the Facebook, our reach is actually amazing. So we have more likes on our Facebook page than we do people in the community. And so to see how fast a missing persons post is shared is crazy. I was looking at Insight yesterday, and over the last 30 days, I believe, we've had over 300,000 views on our Facebook.
And I think that's huge because, you know, a lot of times our missing people do end up, they're not in Farmington anymore. Mm-hmm. So being able to reach out outside of our community, we have several cases. We have a phenomenal missing persons detective, and he's been able to track people to other Albuquerque or down in southern parts of the state. So the ability to reach people further than just the community can be extremely beneficial.
And I think it's hard with Facebook is because I do post them a lot. I post at least 2 a week. And so for anybody who's just watching our Facebook page, they're seeing missing person after missing person after missing person. But our clearing rate is astronomical. We usually can clear those within 48 hours. So do you want to talk about what our open active missing people are?
Sure. So total cases, from basically the history of time that our cold case detectives are looking at, is we have 19 open cases of people that were reported missing that we haven't been able to locate. Of that, six people have been reported missing this year that we haven't been able to locate. And I don't have the stats with me, but we're looking at probably hundreds of missing persons reports that we take, over a year or so. So the ability to be able to use social media, the work from our missing persons detective, he does a very good job locating the vast majority of the people that are reported missing.
And on our new website, we'll have its own section of all of the active missing people, because I do understand that that's a misconception. But people aren't going back to our Facebook page to see like how fast that we're clearing them. They just keep seeing these faces, and then I remove the faces, and people don't ever follow up. But with the new website, we'll have all the active cases there, and then I'll update it just like I do with Facebook, so that they can see all the people. And we've had people, I think from like the 90s is the longest
Yes.
one we've had. So with that, how do we work with outside agencies or databases like NamUs or NCIC when handling long-term missing person cases?
So I think going back to what I had mentioned, a lot of times or frequently we get information or tips that, hey, this person was seen in Albuquerque, or this person was seen down south, or this person was seen up in Colorado. So that requires a lot of networking. So if we need to drive down Albuquerque and see if we can talk to the people that saw them, we can do that. But the further away from Farmington you get, the less feasible that is. So reaching out to those agencies on a frequent basis to ask for their help, giving them the information, asking them to put their eyes out, is a lot of what our missing persons detective does, is just that networking, whether it be with other local agencies, state agencies. And as far as the databases, we enter all of our missing people into NCIC. We do that within hours of the report. I mean, we're mandated by state to get them into NCIC just within hours of them being reported. And that's an alert to nationwide. If a police officer was able to, find a person and identify them and run them through the database, it would flag that, hey, this person was reported missing. And then that becomes the interactions between us and that other agency about ensuring, yes, this is that person, taking them out of NCIC. And then NamUs, the same thing. We're constantly updating our people in NamUs if we get any kind of information, new information on where they might be or whatever the case may be, updating all of that. Because what it takes is just a lot of networking to try to track down people that have been missing for quite some time.
And I have to tell the public that a lot too, because we'll have people with their Facebook comment on their post and say, it's me, I'm not missing anymore. But there's an entire system behind it, and so they have to call non-emergency dispatch. An officer has to be dispatched to them to verify who they are to be able to remove them from that database in order for me to remove them from the post.
And that's important. We want to make sure that they are safe, right? I mean, it's not illegal to be missing, but obviously we want to ensure the safety of the people that are missing. So if we can see them and say, yes, this is them, they are okay, that's a very important part of the process, so that to ensure that we aren't writing somebody off that is indeed missing, but hey, somebody said they're not, so we just call it good at that point.
Yeah, and frankly, if you were going to have somebody actually doing harm to someone, them calling up and saying, "Oh, what are you looking for me for? I'm here." Yeah, we're going to get eyes on you first. Right. So that isn't, and you're not doing that through Facebook. The other one, as far as our cases, I think we had like 167 last year, and we cleared all of those. Mm-hmm. So the amount of resources the department, which is, I think is another misconception from the public, that is a ton of resources. So behind the scenes, you're having patrol officers respond out, take those missing person calls. They get kicked back. Shanice immediately is putting out locates for them on social media. We're entering them into computer systems. It's getting kicked back to the detective division. Detectives are following up on that case. 167 people last year reported missing, and all of those cases cleared. But a ton of resources for the department that we're putting. It also goes to, and I see the comments some on social media, the belief that we're posting missing persons at such a high rate. What is going on in Farmington? Honestly, this is the way it's always been. We're doing a better job of using social media, and we're having more success using social media. So we are putting those out very regular. But that's, you can certainly, in the minds, again, through social media, you can certainly create the sense that things are out of control in a community, and really they're not. This is just the process, and we've been successful doing it this way.
And I'm excited when we do get the website up, because people can go and see all of the faces and how many people we've cleared. So the person you saw 2 days ago is no longer on the website because they've been cleared, and so it's an easy way to be able to read that.
Yes.
Chief, can you talk about us doing reports for people not in our jurisdiction, because that's another big one that we get criticized a lot for, but we do things.
Yeah, so that was, when I first got here, there was, Nevo PD didn't have access to NCIC, and frankly, sometimes people were missing from the reservation, and their family lived in town, or people were missing, had come into town, but their family was on the reservation, and so they'd come into town to report it. Very early on, we started taking reports, even if things didn't happen necessarily in our jurisdiction. If they just needed somebody to take a report and get it in the system, we were doing that. That drove our missing person numbers higher for the first 4 or 5 years. Also put us in line to be working cases that actually we didn't have a lot of evidence, and we certainly didn't have much jurisdiction over. But nonetheless, I wanted it at least in the system that if a police officer in Phoenix were to have contact with this person, it's in the computer. They're a missing person. Now, since then, it's become state law that an agency, doesn't matter whether something happened in your jurisdiction or not. If someone's trying to report a missing person, the department is obligated to take that report, and so we do that more. It goes to some of it goes to some of what I'm saying. I don't know how many out of the 167 we had missing last year actually were missing from Farmington, and how many they had maybe been in Farmington at some point, but we took the report anyway because somebody had come to us asking for that. So I want people found, I want it in the system, but it certainly presents other challenges once you take the report.
Awesome. What role does cell phone data or digital footprints play in tracking missing individuals or homicide suspects?
Yeah, I think, anytime that there is a significant case that's assigned, you can guarantee we have probably one detective that's dedicated to getting the search warrants for the cell phones, social media platforms, or whatever the case may be. That is a treasure trove of information at times, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? It takes a lot of work a lot of warrants, because rightfully so. We can't just go say, hey, tell me where that person's cell phone's been. We have to get warrants and that kind of stuff to obtain it. But again, that has become a very important piece of being able to solve these crimes, because we're able to place that person, or at least that person's cell phone, in the area of the crime scene during the times. So it's extremely important. It comes into play very heavily when we come to prosecuting the case and that kind of stuff. That's what people want to know, and people know we have the ability to do it. But it comes at a cost of a lot of resources, a lot of manpower hours to do the work to get to that point.
And it goes to what you were saying earlier, because I watch forensic files and some of those, and everything's wrapped up in about a half hour. And honestly, a half hour you're just starting on your search warrant. Much less actually getting it signed by a judge and reviewed by the DAs, and then shipped off to the company to begin getting that data and then combing through that data. So I like those shows, but they create. Because some of it, they're showing some of the technology that we're talking about today. Some of the improvements that in the 1990s when I started coming, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have social media. Mostly you just walk down the street and ask somebody, hey, are you so-and-so? It was pretty rough, rudimentary copy. Right? Yeah, it was rudimentary copy. So the technology has really exploded, but it's a lot of work to get there. And goes to what you were saying. The public, I think, thinks we're able to get things solved like that, and the reality is it's a much more cumbersome process.
Yeah, and a lot of times we're at the mercy of that company as far as the turnaround time. Some companies will get us to us in the next few days. Sometimes we're waiting for weeks or even months to get the results of that warrant.
I think it's also important to note that it's also not a guarantee. I think that's also a misconception. So we've had a missing person that's been missing for over a decade, and we have a cell phone and we can't get into it.
Yeah.
And so just because you have it doesn't mean you can get into it. And I think one of the phones is locked, like you have to get a key or something
Yeah.
for, and so it's not a guarantee.
Yeah, depending on security on the phone and that kind of stuff, we can have the phone, but if we aren't able to access it, we're not going to get anything beneficial from it. So it is a lot of pieces have to fall in the right place for it to be successful.
And that debate over privacy on the cell phones has been raging, really for the last decade or more, as companies move towards encryption and hard locking the phones down. And I understand some of that. The trade-off to it is, in instances like this, you're just not going to get into some of these, and which is then a dead end for us. So there's a cost for things, and then there's an opportunity cost. The cost is on the front end. Here's what it cost me to do it. And the opportunity cost is, well, what if I'd have done something else? Then we could have gone that direction. In this case, in exchange for great privacy and more rigorous efforts before we let the police into stuff, the cost to it is sometimes we're not finding folks, and we can't get into even their technology to try and locate them. So.
Okay, we have a couple minutes left. What advancements in investigative technology are you most excited for about the future for solving violent crimes?
Well, I think obviously this DNA machine that we got is probably the biggest one. I'm very excited from anything from the homicide cases to the property cases, right? The ability to at least get some investigative leads that we may not otherwise have had. And I think the second thing is we are investing some money into a software. It's called Peregrine. And in law enforcement we have a ton of data, but unfortunately a lot of times that data is siloed and it's hard to access and it's hard to connect the dots and that kind of stuff. This software that state is actually assisting in funding is going to give the opportunity to kind of bring all that data in together and then clean it up and give us the opportunity to make connections and leads with networking people together and that kind of stuff, as well as sharing data between other agencies, because criminals that are committing crimes here in Farmington are committing crimes in Albuquerque. Yeah. So to be able to share that data with Albuquerque PD, for example, I think is going to be hugely beneficial.
Yeah. Same with Navajo Nation and Durango. I mean, the jurisdictional lines, whether they're the Navajo Nation line, where we have no jurisdiction, or Durango, La Plata County in Colorado, where again we have no jurisdiction. So the ability to cross those lines with technology is helpful.
Absolutely.
So tonight is we're filming on Thursday, and it is a big night. And what happens tonight, Shanice?
Something to do with it's the draft.
Confidentiality is not Lieutenant Goodsell.
Lieutenant Goodsell.
What can I tell you? Or Sergeant Goodsell. I'm not really sure. So, Shaun, who are the Packers going to pick, do you think?
I don't care.
Really? That is very disturbing. Very disturbing. So we'll have Shaun on really pretty repeated now, because we've shown that he doesn't care. Well, good. He's going to be here with us then. But this week we've got 3 days of the draft. I'm looking forward to it, although I'm nervous that we will screw it up again, as we have the last few years. So we'll see, and we'll talk with you in a couple of weeks. We'll kind of break down the draft. Shanice will kind of analyze each of the 7 picks the Packers have right now and kind of give her thoughts on
I will watch it.
on the future. So with that, we thank you for joining us, and Shaun, keep doing a good job. And Shanice, excellent intro today.
Thanks. Didn't mess it up.
Yes.
Yay.
We'll see you next time on the Cop Shop with FPD.